My name is Buddy Hall, and welcome Talking Funny Cars. And boy, do we have a special guest today. I'd like to welcome on the show, and that is two-time world champion funny car driver, Mr. Cruz Pedregon. Please welcome Cruz on the show.
How the heck are you, buddy?
Fantastic. How about you?
I'm great, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful day, and it's good to sit with you. Hoping not to race each other this weekend.
Hey, man. Maybe.
You never know.
Buddy, I'm gonna say this. I've never really met you formally, but I've always thought, you know what, that's a pretty cool guy right there.
Well,
Got the right build for funny cars.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Good attitude. Love it.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you. And I've been watching you for years, and I try to watch all the drivers and pick up tips and tricks. So you better believe I've watched you go down the racetrack many times. So,
I appreciate it. Yeah.
and that being said, why'd you get into funny cars? What was it?
Well, my dad was a dragster racer back in the 60s, and a lot of people know the story, but funny cars were just kind of more in my wheelhouse. I love dragsters, but I was always a funny car guy because if you really look at a dragster, a 60s top fuel car, it's like a funny car with the body off of it. Motors in front, kind of wicked crazy. The motor's sitting there a couple of inches away from your face. I like that. I like the danger of it. I like the body. Fans can identify with the different models and styles of the cars. Not taking anything away from dragsters, but I guarantee you there isn't a dragster driver alive that wouldn't rather be driving what you and I drive than funny cars.
That's right. 100%. And 100% relate. Relatable for me. I started in fuel alters because I couldn't afford a funny car when I first started my career, and that's just the truth. So you talked a little bit about your dad and talked about him driving the front engine dragsters.
Yeah.
I'd like to a little bit more about that. So obviously it's what led you into funny cars. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, what's funny? My dad raced when we were little kids. Myself, Tony, and my older brother Frankie. We were just little kids. We didn't really remember a lot of my dad's career. We remember wiping the tires. We remember breathing the nitro, and it burned our eyes. But we weren't old enough to really know what it was about. And then once we started becoming of age to drive, we didn't even have a driver's license. We would go to Orange County and some of the local tracks in SoCal, Southern California. And so my dad would let us go because he was not really. I don't think he wanted to get hooked again. And so that was the beginning. So we went on our own without our dad. And then our dad passed away at an early age. So we all decided, hey, man, to heck with the family business. Let's all pursue our careers. And so we had opportunities in drag racing. We pursued some of my dad's friends. We got to kind of network and kind of get to know people. And I was fortunate enough to hang out with a guy named Joe Pisano who had a nitro funny car in the 80s, 70s, a good friend of my dad. So
beautiful cars, by the way.
Yeah. He's an Italian guy. He loved the candy apple color. So he kind of brought me under his wing, and really was what led me to paths that led me here where we are today.
Yeah, so was Joe's car the first nitro funny car you drove?
No, I didn't drive. I never drive. I wanted to drive the car, but he had legendary drivers like Mike Dunn, Trip Shoemake, Jake Johnson, Sushma Tsubara, some of the legendary drivers back in the day. Oh, yeah. And I was on the crew of his. I was never. I drove his truck actually. I was a truck. My dad raised us in at a trucking company. So when Joe got a new truck, he went from the crew cab to the big truck. I was kind of able to worm my way in there to be on his crew just by showing him how to drive the truck. So that was really it. I always wanted to drive his car, but I wasn't of age, and but I was lined up. I think at some point, but I'm glad the path led where it did. I started driving alcohol cars, alcohol dragsters, then it led into alcohol funny cars. Then I got my big break with Larry Minor, who was friends of Joe Pisano's, who introduced me in 91. I drove his dragster for a year, and then the very next year was the beginning of the McDonald's sponsorship, 92, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, so I got a little story to add in there with the McDonald's deal. So and I know you remember this. I remember going to the track. I as a little kid, I remember the funny car and the top fuel car, and I remember in Indy specifically, the majority of all the food vendors suddenly turned into McDonald's. And they even sold pizzas. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do remember. Yeah, hey, you have a good memory. They sold pizzas for a while. Yeah.
I don't forget much about drag racing, and what a great era that was. We should touch on that again at some point and talk about the era of nitro funny car during that time. But right now, or maybe all time, let's talk about your biggest rival. Who is the person? And they may not be racing anymore, or they may be. I don't know. But who is that rival? And I want to know something about that rival. I want to tell the world something about that rival and you that no one has ever heard before.
Rivals are something that you can't predict or talk about, or it's not. It's like a nickname. Somebody has to give it to you. You can't give it to yourself. That's right. So, the obvious one's John Force, but really everybody is their favorite driver at the finish line when they beat them.
That's
Me
right.
and Tony talk about it all the time. It's like, oh man, they say so many good things, but if you get your butt kicked by them, that's the what. So I want to be neutral on that. You know, I'm going to go back and say John Force, because we probably raced each other the longest. Ron Capps is close, but I started at 92. We dethroned John when he was at his best. He had Austin Coyle. He was, you know, in the prime. He was in his 40s, and boy, he's a deep staging mofo back then, and he's a deep staging guy now. But John's always been really good. But, you know, as a driver, I always respected John because he brought it. You know, he wasn't worried about staging, about being everybody's buddy, and, hey, kind of sportsmanship. He's like, damn, a sportsmanship. Watch this.
Yep.
And dude would get it done. So I would say John, and I would say because not just because we've raced each other so long, but I just have a lot of respect for him, and he gives it back to me. And, boy, we've got a lopsided win-loss record, I can tell you that. But we've got our shots in there, and but just great to have. I'm going to look back at my career and think, man, John Force, I got to race with that guy through all the years. Pretty cool.
Yeah, what a legend. And so what's something that the world doesn't know about you and John Force?
You know, I think really we've had our rivalries. We've maybe had words, but I think there's a mutual respect. John and I really get along. I don't think there's any issues. We've never had any words behind the scenes. Never had. I've always looked at John as kind of a tough guy, and man, I don't want any parts of him off the track. But like I said, I think a lot of people think there's this rivalry, and him and my brother, there's the famous YouTube video of them getting into it at the finish line. But hey, I've never gotten into it like that. Like I said, I've always just respected him. But we do want to beat the guy, even to this day. I mean, here we are, in the 2024s, and we definitely want to beat each other for sure. Still.
Of course. Well, everybody wants to beat John Force.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
It's good the world now knows that. They may have known it before, but now they know more details.
Yeah.
So, something I want to talk to you about is that California Charger funny car, because you got to know that I believe that it has got to be the best looking funny car on the earth at this point in time. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with your California.
Yeah, I appreciate. We got a little noise in the ears, but I think really for me, it kind of goes back to what we talked about. That era of '70s funny car is the era I fell in love with. The cars were still identifiable enough. They had that old school feel and look, but still they were long, and they had they were crazy looking, and they drove all over the place. Guys were whacking the wall every once in a while across to the center line. So I just fell in love with that particular car, the California Charger. What an amazing paint job. I'd like to take credit for the amazing look of the car, but I just replicated what John Keelan and Jerry Clayton built back in the 70s. And man, they had some great drivers, Rick Ramsey, Jake Johnson, and Neil Leffler. So that car was when they were in 1977, they were literally around the corner from our shop in Gardena. So we used to hear it start, so we'd go over there with our bikes, and it was that particular car, that 1977 Firebird Trans Am. So I rebuilt it, replicated it. Thanks for NHRA for allowing people to have a category to showcase those old school funny cars. So yeah, man, it's we're gonna bring it out to Bakersfield, the March meet, the reunion. We take it out there and run it a little bit, and yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, to me, that I've always been a fan of that car before you rebuilt the car 10, 12 years ago. Yeah. And there's a reason why. I'm originally from Central Illinois, and my hometown is just roughly 20 miles from Jerry Clayton's hometown.
Wow, yeah.
Which is Nortonville, Illinois.
Right.
And so, I've always known about that car, and not just that one, but, the Top Fuel cars that were also legendary, where every part and piece was painted and chromed and anodized and polished or whatever. And those guys just, they built a heck of a race car. So I can tell you that I appreciate you rebuilding that race car. I love that car.
Yeah, the backstory there is those guys were airline. One was a pilot, Jerry was the pilot, and John Keeling, who was the kind of the crew chief, he was an airline technician, and so the aircraft quality that he put into that car shows in those cars. And I'm impressed that buddy, that about those cars, and you followed them. Hey, you're a young guy, so you must have been really young, but yeah, those cars really were the first show car race cars of their kind, and they deserve a lot of credit for sure.
Yeah, they were. And that's I think I don't think that's even possible anymore, and God bless you for keeping yours so clean, because we're so hard on these race cars. They're truly built for performance, so to try to make one look that good and keep it that clean is everything but impossible. Yeah, what a great era. So Let's talk about something else here. So what's going on in Cruz's life outside of the racetrack? So we always talk about drag racing, and all the fans watching, they're always hearing about what we're up to on TV. But let's talk about what you're doing outside of drag racing, or maybe your favorite memory of all time in drag racing.
Well, I have a daughter. Raya's 13, so I try to spend as much time with her as I can. And it's the old cliche, or I guess not even a cliche, but in all racing, there's sacrifices we all make. We're away from our families, and I've been away. I can't even have a dog or a cat.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's spend a lot of time some time with Ryan, not as much as I would like, but I really lead a pretty boring life. I have my own race team, so it takes a lot of my time. I have a really nice shop, 25,000 square foot shop, and I have some activities there where the upkeep on that. In the California Charger, my fiance Melissa, we travel a little bit. We go back to California, which is where we're both from, spend a little time out there. And so I don't really do a lot, believe it or not. I don't have a Harley, I don't paraglide, I don't do anything like that maybe I wish I would have, but I have this love for dirt track racing. So I do a little bit of iRacing on the side. I have a couple of USAC midgets that I race. I don't race them, but I own them. Race Chili Bowl. So outside of my iRacing, some of my friends, I go to some dirt track races. I race sprint cars, midgets, and dirt late models. NHRA is it, baby. This is it. This is what you see is what you get with me.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you made any runs in the dirt car?
Yeah, back probably 2008, 9, 10, 11. I don't think I raced midgets, and I actually raced the Prelude to the Dream. Tony Stewart had the big race at Eldora. It was a charity. He would invite all the NASCAR drivers and myself and Ron Capps to partake in these 900 horsepower dirt late models. And actually, Ron and I held our own. We were actually pretty decent, and so. But outside of that, and that deal went away. So it's for me to jump in a dirt car to now, as competitive as I am. I don't feel like I would do myself any justice. I would be running the back. And so I kind of hire drivers that I let them drive, give them opportunities that I was given as a younger guy. But no, I don't, like I said, I don't, other than the California Chargers, my hobby and the dirt track stuff, pretty much about it.
What is your favorite funny car memory of all time?
My favorite memory of all time, man, I got to say, winning both my championships, 92, there was a big gap, 92 to 2008. When you finally close the deal on a world championship, it's surreal. There's nothing like it. And both times I still had to race. It's crazy because you build up for these moments. And then whether we locked it up in 92 in the second round, same thing in 2008. We locked it up in the second round, but we still had to race. It was a little bit awkward to climb back in the car after celebrating so much. But we went to the semis at the first one, and we actually won the race with my 2008 championship. But anytime you win a championship, it's nothing like it. I wish a lot of these drivers would experience that, but it's pretty memorable. And I got to say, the other one was my wheel stand in 2016 with the Snap-on car.
Aaron landed beautifully.
Yeah, that wheel stand probably was so scary for me, but it's probably given me more notoriety and accolades than winning a championship.
That's right. Yeah, and I remember that wheel stand. It was it literally looked like it was planned. It was so perfect. Thing just came off the ground, kind of ballooned itself up, landed nice and easy. And if I remember correctly, that was a breast cancer awareness body, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was October, and it was a fairly breezy day in Vegas. And that was at the first part of the laid-back header era where everybody was copying my car. I was the first one to lay him back in 2010. And then everybody kind of caught on. I didn't realize it was that big of a performance. I just laid him back because Joe Pisano back in the day laid his back for speed at the finish line.
That's
Little
cool.
did we know they would act as a little thrust to launch the car. So, a lot of guys started filming my cars, which I still, it offends me a little bit that they would have the audacity. But I guess that's a good compliment. Some guys figured it out. So we were all laying them back a little bit more than we should have. And that was bound to happen to somebody. And it happened to the guy that did it in 2010 for the first time.
That's right. We're at that point with evolution and performance in which you have to start trying some very different things, some things that are not very fundamental, such as that, and really think about aero. And I believe what happened to you, obviously, they laid back so far, they just lost all the downforce on the front of the car, and it just ballooned itself right over.
Yeah, and had it been not race day, I probably would have got out of the throttle. But I watched the video. I was on the throttle a little bit too long. But what's so weird about that is I just saw blue sky, so I had no perspective of where I was. I had no, perspective, really. Just blue sky. So I thought, man, and it was so quiet. And serene and peaceful, and the way and it landed straight. I was totally shocked that it was so straight. I thought I was gonna, go for a ride there. Yeah. So anyway, it worked out, but definitely scary, but memorable. Cool.
Sure. So we've talked a lot about funny cars today. We've talked a lot about your personal life, but what we haven't talked about yet today is what do you just absolutely love about these funny cars?
Really, it's simple. It's the cars. I mean, really, buddy, aren't the cars the coolest freaking thing on the planet?
It's the coolest thing in the earth.
I love sprint cars, World of Outlaw sprint cars at 1,000 horsepower motors at the wing. They only weigh 1,200 pounds. That's a very cool ride. But a nitro funny car, if there's somebody that can explain to me a cooler looking car,
that's right,
a car that accelerates harder, a car that's more dangerous and wicked and all the stuff to drive, where is it? I'll send Matt Hagan. If we go out early, I'll be up there watching funny cars, and I'll just sit there and I'll go as close as I can, and I'm thinking to myself, even though I've been doing it over 30 years, I still think, what a freaking cool car that is, man. Man created a hell of a machine, but yeah, it's a car.
It is. I mean, they really are the coolest thing on the planet. There's so much uniqueness about them as well. The dragsters kind of all tend to kind of look the same. Funny car still has a little bit of uniqueness. There's a few different bodies out there. Yeah. There's some guys that do some interesting things on how they situate the plumbing and the wiring.
Right.
It makes them very unique, and the fans sure love them. We know that the Top Fuel Dragster, on paper performs a little bit better than the funny car, but let's be real. We've both driven them both.
Oh, yeah.
And once you drive that funny car, there is no going back to that Top Fuel car.
But, if you look at the history of match racing, it was always funny cars. And like I said, my dad raced Top Fuel, so I had nothing against Top Fuel cars, but I've never heard of booking in, or I rarely have heard of booking in Top Fuel cars. Funny cars, Bill Bader still does it to the Night Under Fire.
That's right.
Up in Norwalk. And there's a reason why. He gets 40,000 people there, and they want to watch the funny cars. So, yeah,
that's right.
Funny cars. We can go on and on about them, but the uniqueness, the body, the fact you can open and close the body, and really, if you look at the speed, Bob Taskin went 341. That's faster than dragsters have gone.
That's right.
Although dragster guys don't want to talk about that.
That's
but,
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Cool. Who's your favorite funny car driver?
I'm going to go different here. I'm going to say my brother Tony. Tony, underrated driver, brought the freaking heat, staged the correct way, drove his ass off, had fires, had all explosion, fearless competitor, Tony Pedregon, man.
Yeah, great choice. I respect the heck out of your brother, too. He and I have talked many times about that. What's your favorite track to take your funny car down?
Man, I'd say Pomona still. Pomona's old school. It's downhill. It's a little bumpy, but there's nothing like that because it looks the same as it did in the 60s. So Pomona, still my favorite track.
It's fair. What's your favorite funny car race of all time? That one single round of racing, what would that be?
Dallas in 1992 against John Force. Both cars smoking the tires. Both cars were laying it on the line. Championships at stake. There's actually, both of us had one end of the national record at stake. Both crew chiefs were over center, over their skis, and we're just driving like maniacs, and we came out on top.
Love it, man. That's fantastic. And I need to describe what it's like to drive your Fuel Funny car, your Snap-on Fuel Funny car in just 15 seconds.
Yeah, man. A lot of people still think, hey, man, no problem. Hey, I get in that thing, and you never know what it's going to do. It's harder to see out of these cars. Man, they're going faster. They vibrate.
That's right.
I just trying to hang on. It's a good, fast car, and it's all I can do with all my years of experience to hang on to it. But I still love it, and I can still get the job done.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Talking Funny Cars with Cruz Pedregon. Be sure you tune in for the next episode.